Hello, everybody. This is the Creator Shift podcast, and I am here with Marshall Fine. Let's look forward at skills. Now,
Okay.
you mentioned something a little while ago, which I think is a really good example of this, is like camera operating for ATL Live. I'm one of the producers, the director, and the technical director. So most of the time, I'm calling camera cues and that sort of thing. And then a little bit here and there, I'm kind of giving direction to the camera operators. And one of the things that you mentioned a little while ago was, tracking. For those who don't know what tracking is, like if a stand-up comedian is on stage and they're just walking around, that's just the camera operator is following the stand-up comedian as they're walking around stage. And as far as skills go, one of the things I like, the way I kind of like refer to it as like, what's the thing that you need to do in your craft that you have to practice a lot. And to me, doing a live event tracking sounds easy, but it is not. The person is moving now, and then the way I want to distinguish it is like, for example, on our show, a stand-up comedian versus an improv troupe. Stand-up comedian is one person, and most of the time they're just kind of casually pacing back and forth. And once you've been watching them for 30 seconds, you kind of get what their vibe is. You see how fast they're walking, you see how quickly they're doing turns, and for the most part, they're just kind of walking to the right, pause, walk to the left, pause, and come back and forth. That's something you certainly have to practice that, but you can pick it up pretty quickly. An improv troupe on the complete other end of the scale, especially when you're, in Atlanta, which is one of the improv hubs. Improv troupes can be crazy. There can be as few as 2 people. I've seen as many as 8 people on stage, and I'm sure there's even bigger troupes than that. When you have that amount of people, and improv troupes are all over the place. They're standing, they're sitting, they're lying flat on the floor, they're jumping around, they're walking out into the audience, they're walking through the back curtains into the back room. They're all over the place. Now, tracking, figuring out who you're following, getting your focus right, getting your positioning right, following someone, one person's talking to another person, how quickly are you going back and forth? Like, all of that stuff is stuff that's really complicated to learn. And it also depends a lot on what the show is, like how quickly you're going back and forth. How much have you been enjoying getting into that process, like understanding the difference between the different acts? Musicians, we do a lot of musicians as well. Like, how much have you been enjoying that process, and what is it that you focus on every show that you're trying to get better at?
Yeah, I think that honestly, I think that it's kind of both. I think that every time we show for a show is kind of more of a it's kind of more of you're showing up, it's kind of showing up with a blind eye, if that makes sense, because it is live, and being live, anything can happen. And so, like you said, watching the last comedian, I think he was a rapper. Um, he was kind of, after watching him for 30 seconds, and I know that I was tracking him. It was kind of like, okay, I got the sense that, okay, you're going from stage left to stage right. You're coming forward some, so kind of trying to move the zoom in and out. So like, all right, I know you're going to come forward, so I need to zoom out. I know you're going to go backwards, and it's not a perfect science. I would say it's definitely not a perfect science, but it's kind of that thing that you kind of play with it, and after 30 seconds or so, it becomes almost like, um it becomes almost like a second nature, I guess, but still not always perfect. If it was something like, if you were doing something like, say, the Oscars, for instance, where you have a true set of, like, okay, you have somebody walking from point A to point B, and you're switching from this camera to this camera to this camera, where it's still live, but there's a set way that somebody's moving. That's much it's a much, while it's live, it's a different type of live.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is done in sequence. It's
Exactly.
this, and those 4 things always happen in the
Right.
same order.
But I enjoy it. Also, is I mean, it's something that definitely actually also helps to kind of keep you awake. Uh, um,
Marshall, he's lying on the floor. Go down to the floor. Go down to the floor. Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly, and it's because it's like, I mean, I've worked, I mean, I've worked on a couple of short films, one of which I had to do for my exit review class, and one that was, that I had worked on was, with a group of people, and it's like I I was the camera op for both of them, and it was kind of like, oh great, we got to reshoot this, we got to reshoot this, oh it's like, and just in that kind of thing, and depending and depending on where what it is that you're doing, depending on how you're, like I was the short film I did with my for my class, was actually, up on the hood of the car, or that's not the hood, I'm sorry, the roof of the car, and shooting down through like the sun window, and stuff like that. And so some of that is, but at the same time, being able to track and being and having to pay attention of like, okay, this is where this person is going, this person's where that's going. All the the fire stuff that I was doing and all that is like, there's two stages, and but being able to, because I'm doing it handheld, it becomes the, all right, you're here, and I really have no clue what's one person's gonna do, one person to the next is gonna do. So anything can, literally anything there, and there's zero planning that can really be done. So, but having done those things, I think has definitely helped me a lot with ATLI, because okay, I know, like, all right, I know I gotta follow this person, the in with with all of the people, with whether it's, improv, or it's rappers or artists, artists of, um well, I guess rappers are artists. The is that, yes, you get that sense of, okay, I gotta follow them and follow them and follow them. All right, now I where do I think they're moving? You kind of hope that you're right, and if you're not, you gotta kind of be prepared to fix that on the fly.
Vocabulary. Now, as filmmakers and photographers, we tend to spend a lot of time thinking of, frame rates and shutter speeds and what degrees Kelvin we're shooting in and that sort of thing. And generally speaking, that's all irrelevant to someone, if to a graphic designer who's like, hey, I need a video. They're not going to say any of those words unless they want like something in slow motion. They're not going to say any of those words at you. So if someone who doesn't know film comes up to you and is like, hey, I need a video done, give me a couple of words that you wish they would know in order to like help get their point across.
Um, I mean, I would say frame rate is probably one of the biggest ones. Um, just because it's one of those things that I don't think that people necessarily think about. And I say that because like I'm part of a lot of like GoPro forums on Facebook, and people post things all the time. I spent an hour last night talking to somebody about how just to import footage, like literally messaging him back and forth through Messenger. Um, anyway, sorry. But where people say, "Oh yeah, just you can do it with just like your phone, and you don't need anything big and fancy, or come and do this. Just come and shoot this." And it's like, oh, wait, hold on, what are we talking about? Because if it's, you driving down the road and doing a donut and doing donuts, well, that's not exactly something you can shoot with your phone, because it's really, really fast, and you need frame rate to be able to do that. You need frame rate to be able to do that, because if you want to do slow mo and all that stuff, like, so I guess that, and I would say, so I guess that's maybe one of the things.
For me, not to interrupt, but for me, I feel like I don't need someone to tell me the frame rate. What I need to know is what is the style.
Or yeah, I guess
Because if they're saying we need to shoot donuts, then I'm thinking then of course if I say something like motion blur, they're not necessarily going to know what that means.
right.
But since all of that stuff, or do they want something in slow mo? Like to me, it's like if they're saying something, I want to know stylistically like
Yeah.
what it is that they're trying to get to, and then maybe I'll say, oh, I'll try this or this frame rate, and then that'll give this kind of effect. So to
Right.
me, I'd rather know like what it is, what's the style, what's the tone, like what are they trying to do, and then I will insert like what the frame rate is.
Right, and actually, and I take that back. Yeah, style is definitely probably the better is the better way to go with that, and I think that's actually what I meant.
Yeah,
I
I
would
think
say
that's where you're going with that. Yeah.
yeah. The I am for I mean, as you just saw, it's like I am not I would say that vocabulary is definitely not my strong suit. Even inside of like school and you had the vocabulary words and the vocab books and all that. It's like I mean, to this day, I don't know that I've ever used a single word inside of the vocab books, but still, like, but even then, I struggled with vocabulary, and and even being able to take that to to now, it's like some of that I do understand, and then there's other things where it's kind of like, okay, I know what you mean, but here's how it's interpreting in my mind. And exactly what you said was like is you took exactly what I was saying and it was like, hey, I think that this is what you meant. Exactly that where okay, I'm not exactly saying the right. I'm not saying I mean the one thing, but I'm kind of saying not saying what it is that I mean. But trying to say what it is that I mean, but not really, not really saying it.
Yep, absolutely. What about like I think because of we're so far into the age of social media, I think at this point most people probably know what zooming and panning is. Like I think even non-film people kind of have an idea.
Mhm.
Zoom in, zoom out, pan just means moving left and right. So I
Right.
feel like those two are probably fairly well known for even someone who doesn't know video, like, oh, I really want to zoom on this part right here. Is there any other words that you can think of that if someone came up to you or like, I really wish they kind of knew what this one word was just so it would make our conversation go easier?
Not really. I mean, I think that it may just be. I mean, and like we talked about earlier, I think it's also has a lot to even do with just me being very early in on things where I've not really been inside of. It's more been me just show up and do something and kind of planning it on my own. It's not really been able to say someone to give me orders and say, okay, here, this is what I want. Unless it was like a short film kind of thing. But at the same time, like you said, with like social media and even in terms of like video games and drones and all that, where it's like, I mean, who doesn't want a flying object through the sky? Like, and same thing with, um, I mean, panning is literally no different than turning a character in a video game left or right. So and I think that's one of the things that people kind of yes they do begin to kind of understand that because they can relate to that with on those things or with a drone. Oh, pan to the left. Okay, I'm turning the drone to the right. I mean to the left, not right, or to the right. So it's like yeah. So this is my YouTube channel, MTY Productions. So basically, right now is in for the last 5 years, so give or take. This is where I basically I bring all of my stuff. So everything I ever shot, including actually things from when I was in high school, I did video production. Um, that stuff is also on here. Um, and the very first thing that I actually did are on here. Um, and so after high school, when
People always love their early stuff, so your high school stuff is amazing, right?
uh,
Just stunningly awesome, right? Right?
yeah, totally. I'm an actor in most of them.
Ah.
Um, I actually played Justin Bieber in one of them. Um, the and I did play a girl in a couple of them and a Disney princess in one. Um, well, Disney princess. Um, so So yeah, so basically this is where I have all of my content. I do.
Emerging technologies. Broadly speaking, what's one of the most recent, like, new technology things you've either taught yourself or you kind of been in the middle of? That could be software, that could be some kind of gear. Like, what's the most recent new thing you've jumped into?
The most recent. So I'm trying to buy a second camera. Um, I my dad has actually much pushed me into the FX30. I just need to kind of pull the trigger and do it, and I just haven't done it. And like I said, I'm a very much more of a run and gun kind of style, and so but having a something that's more of like a DSLR that's like this, it makes it kind of harder to do to run and gun, and especially with like when you have a monitor and all that, and trying to kind of get there. So I guess it would be that I rented it a few weeks ago, and actually I one of my scouts happened to be having a Eagle project, and I was like, you know what, I can I have a reason to use this. Like it's not just me saying, okay, let me go out and just shoot birds flying through the sky. It was okay. I have a real reason to be able to try to use this and be able to get experience with it and all that. I mean, um I guess that's kind of it. I mean, I don't really branch out that much out of like Premiere. Um the I do a little bit with I mean, well, I use Premiere a lot. I'm not great with like Photoshop or Illustrator, but I use them a little bit. Like I'll use it for photos, or I'll use it for to try to maybe draw something. Um, but so that's kind of so I mean, but kind of doing it little by little. I think the best thing that I actually learned recently was the Adobe podcast, and using that for like speech. Going through school, my teacher was all about Audition, and I hate the Audition. It was just like it's like I mean, aside from the fact that I have the textbook on it and have I think the seal's been broken maybe once. Um the It was just like, what am I looking at? I don't really get any of this. It just I just I don't like it. And so when we had done the project when I had done the documentary that I had sent you, the company who had sent me some of the interviews because I wasn't able to get the other stuff. Um, the guy was saying that he ran the people's like interviews. He ran them through Adobe Podcast, and I was like, huh, and it like cleaned up the audio really well and all that, and I was like, that's awesome. So the interviews that I took, I actually ended up running them through. I would edit them down to what into whatever it was to be in the inside of the documentary, and then I would export just that chunk, and I would um and and run it through Adobe Podcast, and I was like, wow, it's like it sounds so much better and all that. I mean, while I've done documentaries with GoPros, and like I have a GoPro 360 and it has a shotgun mic on board. If I'm going to do a documentary with GoPros, that's what I'm using for audio because it's got a shotgun mic. So why not? But I was like, all right, now that I know that Adobe Podcast is there, even though I know it's a beta, um, it's a nice tool to be able to have there to be able to say, okay, I can use this to clean up it'll clean up the audio. All I gotta do is drag it in, boom, done, and that kind of thing. So I guess in short, I guess Adobe Podcast would be the newest and greatest technology that I've gathered. I know a
Awesome.
long way to go to get there.
Awesome. So that's, as far as programs go, that's kind of the most recent thing that you've really been going after. And then as far as gear is that second camera you're looking to buy.
Yeah.
So what's the next thing that you keep telling yourself I have to learn more? You mentioned both Photoshop and Illustrator. Is it one of those? Is it After Effects? Like what's the next thing that you keep telling yourself I really need to jump into that?
I think maybe it would be like more of like something with like After Effects or learning other stuff inside of just the Adobe suite. I wouldn't say necessarily really anything in particularly. Just it's kind of like, I have the Adobe suite, and the more things I know how to use in it, the better. Um, but at the same time, it comes from just experience and all and that kind of thing. If there's something I'm like, oh, I want to try to do this, I'll either go to YouTube and YouTube it, um, and all that. I tend to be kind of a creature of habit, where it's like, okay, once I can really do things with it, I tend to kind of, try to work as much as I can inside of that.
In grad school, I very stupidly took the most difficult Adobe Photoshop class,
Mhm.
followed immediately by the most difficult Adobe After Effects class, because I'm insane. There's absolutely no reason for me to have taken the most difficult of both of those. I really enjoyed the Photoshop one. I got my butt kicked the entire time because I barely knew Photoshop, and it was a really, really intense class. But the After Effects class, I did not enjoy in the slightest. And for that particular class, they were really into using it for animation, which some people do use it for animation. I don't like After Effects for animation. Now, I love animation. I love writing for it and I love directing it, but I don't like being the one who's like physically at the computer doing all of that. I do use After Effects every single day, however, and I always use templates. And whether that's something as simple as lower thirds, that could be promo videos or sizzle videos, could be making transitions. Like there's all kinds of things I use it for, but I don't like using it for animation, and I learned that the hard way. Um, but yeah, as far as After Effects goes, just being able to use templates and being able to go in and change colors and change timing of animations, all of that, it makes everything else so much easier. Like just being able to learn that one program and knowing that will certainly make understanding Photoshop and Illustrator, because a lot of them tend to have the same design, like the actual UI design itself
Yeah.
tends to be fairly similar inside the creative suite. So, but yeah, if After Effects is on your list, I would definitely say go for it. And I've got lots and lots of templates, so I can always send you stuff if you want. But just being able to like follow through with a template and get something really simple done, it helps everything, and it makes your video so much better. So I would definitely recommend that if that's something on your radar. All right, last main question: resources. Where do you go if you want to be inspired?
Um, Mostly, honestly, where I go to be inspired with things is kind of just shows. Um, my parents in particularly kind of crap on me about the fact um, that I spend a lot of time
They
watching.
sound lovely, Marshall.
They are, but it's I spend a lot of time um inside of, I guess, kind of the little kid world, of in the terms of, like, I've always been a fan of Pixar. I've always been I I grew up with Disney Channel and Nickelodeon and that kind of stuff. And so um but watching, I watch those things and I'm like, whoa, that was cool. Like, um the it's like we'll sit down and watch TV. My parents will be like, oh, that was a cool shot. Oh, this person. I'm like, stop talking, please. Like, it's like, because I want to be able to sit down, and yes, while our careers are about, about all of those things, it's like, okay, I just want to sit down and I want to be able to watch it. But at the same time, it's kind of like, you just kind of just think about things, and thinking about things from other shows or other movies. I know that for when you watch one of these big budget movies, they're this big, and we're like that big. but and so the in terms of resources and the things that we have to be able to do these different things is much more minimal. But thinking about, okay, how can I maybe do these things? One of the shows that I grew up was and have actually watched a million times is that show Victorious. Like just the way that it's shot and the way the camera like moves around and all that. I mean, no, that's not something I know how to do, but like in a whole effect and stuff that I know how to do. But it's cool to kind of watch things like that where it's kind of like, okay, I'd like to be able to do something like this. I have these kinds of ideas, getting stuff from lower angles, getting stuff from this angle, being able to take a drone and fly it from here to here. All those things is like it is. So I guess in theory, I guess my inspiration really comes from kind of TV, but also at the same time when I am somewhere, I'm a very adventurous person. I live for adventure. So, not saying that everything I do is the smartest, um, but you know, it'd be really cool to put like to mount this on maybe the very front of this motorcycle or on this door, or oh wait, what if someone stands like right here, or I'm gonna stay crouched right here on the ground and you're gonna drive up and, well, don't hit me. Like, and we actually did that for one my short film at school, and it was an idea that I had, and then I didn't do the editing for it, but they ended up not using it. I'm like, why? It would have been so good. And it was just like, all right, so coming up with ideas, but at the same time it's kind of just the fact of also kind of being sometimes resourceful to what's around you. I did kind of build a tripod once, sort of out of a rock and a stick, because it was like I was on camp out and I had the GoPro, but it was just like the handheld thing that I had just didn't really, I couldn't get it to exactly what I wanted. And I was thinking, all right, maybe I can do something here. And so I put it down and I like put it on rock and like, okay, all right, I got something kind of here. So, it's being
Yeah.
resourceful with the things that are around you.
Yeah, the list of things that I've used as impromptu tripods, that list goes on forever. Just ridiculous, ridiculous shoes. I mean, just any weird thing you can think of. I've definitely already put a camera there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, I mean, and like I said, I mean, it's about, I mean, there's not any, I mean, I'm a potter, and it's like I do pottery, and as I say to people when they ask me for help, I'm like, there's not a wrong way to do things. There's not a right way, and there's not a wrong way to do things. There's the basics of things, but once you kind of have that basic, it's not about what's wrong, what's right and wrong. It's about the creativity of what can you bring to that. What is the touch that maybe somebody else has not maybe thought of, or what is something that somebody has thought of that you can kind of steal that idea and be like, hey, I'm going to do this too. And using the things that are around you. It's like you don't have to have, somebody had told me once that, what, this is one of those industries where it's like, yes, we all want to have the best gear, but and honestly, you're probably gonna laugh when I say it, but one of my favorite movies, Top Gun Maverick, in particularly, my favorite quote from that movie is, "It's not the plane, it's the pilot." I'm a double black diamond skier. When I ski, that's my thing. I'm like, it's not the ski, it's the pilot. It's not. I actually was updating stuff for on my Instagram and all that, and I actually rearranged that quote and I said, it's not the camera, it's the pilot. And then I used something also from like Yoda, since actually my nickname is also Yoda. Um, that's a different story. But realizing that after that movie, I was kind of realizing that, what, it's not about, yes, it's about the gear, but it's also about taking the gear that you have and what can you do with it. And so it's not always about having the best of the best of the best gear, but what can you use what can you do with what you have and all of that. So because not everybody can afford to go out and buy $100,000 camera. I sure as hell can't do that. The I'm struggling just to buy a $3,000 camera, like that FX30, and like, do I really want to spend 3 grand on this? Like, because I want to deck it out with I want to get the whatever the or whatever free world monitors and stuff like that, and I want to kind of build it out some, and I'm like, well, I don't know, like, but doing what you have and stuff like that, but at the same time, not being afraid to take risk.
Yep, no, I am 100% in agreement with you as far as gear goes. I say all the time, I am not a gear snob. I'm not. I don't care. I don't care how fancy your camera is. I don't care. I just don't care. If you cannot operate it, if you cannot get the best out of your gear, then it does not matter how fancy your gear is. Same thing with
Right.
the editing conversation. If you're not a good editor, throwing a bunch of graphics on top of it isn't going to make the edit any
Will
better.
not make
So
any
no,
better,
I
right?
do not care in the slightest about what the gear is. You said a little while ago, you can't use your phone for this or that. I use this phone for a ridiculous amount of stuff. I use
Right.
this phone all the time. I had been doing, I was doing a real estate video, and I walked in to shoot the house, $4.3 million house, totally empty. And it's one of those houses that physically did not have lights. There was no lights except in the bathrooms,
Yeah.
and it was empty, which meant there was no lamps in it. It was so dark in the house, even with all the shades open, all the windows open. It was so dark in the house. I literally could not use my expensive camera, and I had to take my phone. And I took my phone out and I shot a $4.3 million house with my iPhone. We did
Yeah.
not tell the people that were selling the house, and the house sold in 3 days. So
Yeah.
it is not about the gear. In that case, it was about the gear because my fancy camera couldn't handle it, but it's not about the gear. Like
Right.
you have to be able to accomplish whatever you need to accomplish with whatever you have on hand and
Yep.
just get the best out of that. So I'm
Exactly.
100% in agreement with you.
Exactly. I mean, I had done the highlight reel documentary thing that I did last summer. It was like we had like some dance party thing, and the lights are off, and there's some flashy lights, but not all that. And I mean, and you probably know as much as well as I do that GoPro sucks in low light. And I was like, I was not something that I had thought about, that hey, we're gonna have this dance party thing, and this is not gonna work real well, and I ended up literally turning on the flashlight from my phone and using the flashlight on top of the GoPro like this as
Yeah,
as a
as an
flash,
impromptu
and
light
it
for,
worked.
yeah.
It worked beautifully. It worked beautifully, and yeah, you can use your phone for a lot of things, and sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It just depends on what it is that's actually being done, what's trying to be accomplished. When I did the short film that I worked on, I to this day I scratch my head and I wonder what went through this electrician's head when designing this place. This place had the worst lighting ever. Like, it was a cabin, and it had the worst lighting ever, because you turn on a light switch in a room, and you would expect the light in that room to go on. Well, no, it went on somewhere else in the house. Like, it was, and this was the entire place. The only place that actually probably was accurate was in the bedrooms, and we didn't shoot anything in the bedrooms, so that didn't matter. And so, me being the camera guy, I didn't know what I didn't know up front was I didn't know that I was going to be the primary guy. And so, but I have like a LED little light panel, um, that I have been using for like shooting the fire stuff, shooting night stuff, and all that, because I was like, okay, while Canon shoots really well in low light, I need something more. And so that I had brought that light with me, thinking, might come in handy. And so, and I'm didn't think about the fact that, oh, you'd be in a cabin that the lights don't work, that someone owns, and the lights don't work. And so I had that one light, and we ended up literally using. I was like, well, all right, let's use this light. Let's see what we can make happen here, because That's all we got. And so then
Mhm.
because of that, I actually went out and I bought two LED, like bigger LED light panels from some guy on a Facebook Marketplace that I found for like $200. It was like, I mean, they came from Amazon. That he was like, yeah, I got them from some raffle, and he didn't know squat about them. But I mean, they're decent, but $200, like, whatever. So, but because of
Mhm.
that, I bought those, thinking like,
Mhm.
all right, if I find myself in a spot like this again, maybe this might be useful. And I actually used them for those interviews for that the uh the documentary that I did. I used them
Mhm.
for that, and they worked fine. It was so yeah.
And that's one crazy thing I have is that because the just sheer amount of shoots I've been on, and there's always some emergency. Does not matter how well you plan, does not matter how well things are going, there's always some kind of an emergency. And so every shoot after that, I have to stop myself from adding that one item to my pack, or my pack is going to be bigger than my car. So
Yeah.
it's just a question of like every time you have an emergency, you're like, I need to make sure I have an extra one of those. It's like, but you can't have an extra one of 117 different things.
Right.
So that's, but yeah, there's a very short list of things that's like, I absolutely cannot function if I don't have one of these. And make sure you have one of those. So,
I'm going out to the Montana again this summer, and I had asked them about, hey, do you want to do like another video of some kind or whatever? And when I just found out a few days ago that I got in for camp for the retreat this summer, and they were like, yeah, we want to do this. We're going to contact you actually in a couple months, because we in the camp, they have something new that they want to do. And I'm like, well, thinking like, all right, well, still flying across the country with my bigger camera and all this, like, that's not going to happen. But thinking, okay, maybe I'll use my drone. I'll use GoPros. I'll use the GoPros again. I'll bring these mounts and all that. And so it's like, it's always the fact of trying to think about, okay, what is it that I might need, and making sure that you have those things. When I go and shoot, I'm always like shooting and shooting and shooting and shooting, and people are like, "Oh, why are you shooting so much?" And I'm thinking, well, because if I overshoot, it's fine. I have enough to play. I have a lot to play with. If I don't, and I say, I really wish I had that, well, I have to use what I have.
yeah, that line between shooting the right amount and overshooting is so hard to see. It's so hard to see where we've got enough versus I shot ridiculously too much, and I shot too much and I still missed the one important thing I needed to get. That line is
Right.
so hard to find.